instead of God. And so that's called unbelief. And all unbelief leads to sin or error or idolatry, because we are made to relate to a God. And so we're going to be replacing that with fallen nature, creatures, or whatever. We're going to be worshiping the creation in some way, shape, or form, instead of the Creator. And so that's, and it's fallen nature, so it's going to lead to a disappointment and finally loss in the end, because it's not wisdom. And so this leads to two types of I'm getting this now from Gerald May's book, Grace and Addiction. Addiction and Grace? It's called Addiction and Grace, I believe it is. And he's a psychiatrist who's really well founded in substance abuse, as well as he's also a theologian. And so he understands the spiritual interwoven with the actual medical process of what's happening. Creator God created the brain, and so medical science is now discovering, scriptures are coming alive through medical science as to how addictions, for example, develop the way it says in the scriptures in the Bible thousands of years ago, before we knew such a thing, as to how these learning processes happen. We now have physiological evidence that our brains are programmed in such a way where, if we're going to recover, we're going to need to be able to apply scriptural principles in order to do that. I'll demonstrate that in a minute. But addictions being abnormal or unhealthy attachments, the root of which is idolatry, and specifically self-idolatry, thinking we know better, or placing our trust in something other than the Creator, seeking to know the Creator. We've decided we know better, and so, this is where the error starts to go off, the judgment starts to go off, and leads to all sorts of addictions to substances, etc., through failed relationships and everything that happens from that. So it works. There's two types of addictions that he speaks of: attraction addictions and avoidance addictions. And so the avoidance addictions are the ones that negatively reinforce behaviors that avoid pain or distress. And so it gets us out of a discomfort. And so we repeat the behavior and repeat the behavior and repeat the behavior, and that becomes a stronghold and an unhealthy attachment if it's unhealthy, and then leads to addiction or loss of control of that behavior or that addiction. And so there's other attraction addictions that works the way, in a way, via positive reinforcement. And so the behaviors reinforced to repeat pleasure. And we have a combination of this kind of learning. We have both negative reinforcers in our life that teach us to stay away from pain, etc., some of which is healthy. And we have positive reinforcers in our lives that teach us what works and what's healthy, so what rewards us, so we want to repeat that behavior. But when it becomes unhealthy is when, rather than facing things or painful truths, etc., we instead reach for the bottle to dull the pain. That would be a negative reinforcer. Aversive conditioning, and it can be a combination. Drinking can start off as a way to have fun, seeking pleasure, but then when that gets out of control, or when adversity comes, then we start to also drink to avoid the pain, or stress release after, say, exams, etc. That, there's a whole culture around that, even in college. And so we learn both types of addiction, whether it's attraction, positively reinforced, or the aversive conditioning of avoiding pain, of avoidance behaviors, that addictions coming from that. We learn these through repetition. And this gets actually hardwired into our brain through the physiology, and so now it's reinforced, and it's become an actual physical condition. It's become a physical addiction. So it may start psychologically, and then through repeated learning becomes an actual established neural pathway, which I'm going to get into in a minute, a little bit on the physiology of it. And so through repetition of behavior in order to avoid pain or seek pleasure, we can end up becoming addicted and lose control of our lives, and actually the very thing we thought we were going towards, pleasure, now becomes something that's destroying our lives and the lives of our loved ones, our family, because we're all connected. And so if we're destroying ourselves, we're taking our family with us, whether we mean to or not. We're all connected. And so it's really imperative for us to learn this, especially for our loved ones' sake. Because, you know, they're watching us, and they are patterning themselves also after us. And so we got to be careful what it is we're passing on to the youth as mentors and parents. And so we want our youth to become leaders and strong leaders, not to be destroyed following destructive behaviors that we've inadvertently taken on. We can unlearn that, and we can learn to overcome and show them that as well. If they've learned the wrong way, well, then they'll see how the process, say, of metanoia, or what the Bible calls repentance, works. When you turn away from something, you turn towards something else. This takes a great deal of faith and courage, and facing things in honesty and authenticity in order to do that. That's the way of depth. The other way is living, you know, what the Bible calls in Psalms, becoming champions at mixing drinks. Well, it's all false and boasting, you know, most of it hot air, you know. So our youth really need a solid example of how to be healthy and how to be strong and how to stay that way and to become stronger and to be able to use our power, not in an abusive, tyrannical way, but in a way that champions others. And including the things that we've overcome. And so if we've overcome something, just get honest about it. Never mind trying to hide it and cover up, because this is part of the way that keeps addictions and abuse alive, is by hiding and covering things up. Let's just be transparent and be real. No one's perfect, so you know, there's no reality to even the imaging of it. So you know, we all learn by our mistakes if we get open and honest. And that's critical with addictions, is getting honest, coming out of denial. And so the spiritual nature of unhealthy attachments, the addictions, involves degrees of loss of control of the willpower. So you are no longer able to pick this up or down, put it down. You now are, you know, enslaved to it. Such as cigarettes. There's a tyranny to that, because you've lost control. You're no longer able, through your will, to put it down easily or whatever. You can't just take it or leave it anymore. You're no longer in freedom, and so that now is tyranny. So that becomes a tyranny. And there's a Chinese proverb that I wrote down here. That the man, first, this is the process of addiction in general, whether it's drink or cigarettes or bad relationships, codependencies, etc.